and Kaiir Elam, again, he was the first round draft pick. You traded up for him. I think you raise more questions if you don't list him above Christian Benford, honestly, at this point. So, and obviously Dane Jackson, that makes sense to me. The only guy with real experience now playing.
And
so, yeah.
Kaiir Elam too. He doesn't seem like the rookie that needs the kick in the butt, right? He's not the guy who needs to see a name of him in front of the depth chart to motivate him. Everything that we've learned about Kaiir Elam since he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills and his process and the way he approaches the game, he doesn't need that. He doesn't need to be kicked in the butt with Christian Benford ahead of him on a depth chart. So if the Bills are trying to play mind games with certain players with the depth chart, certainly Kaiir Elam is probably not one of them. Some interesting quotes today surrounding sort of that depth chart when it comes to Kaiir Elam and Christian Benford. Leslie Frazier says they will mix it up at cornerback with between Kaiir Elam and Christian Benford, opposite of Dane Jackson. He also went on to mention when they asked him why didn't you bring in a veteran, etc. He sort of hinted that Trey White was pretty close to actually making the active roster and being a possibility to actually play week 1. So it appears like maybe we'll only get 4 weeks of that sort of Elam Benford battle for CB2 before we get Trey White starting to get worked back in, possibly week 5, 6, or 8 after the bye week. But what are your thoughts? Do you like the fact that they're going to be maybe rotating some guys there at cornerback, or would you like to just see them pick one and stick to it?
I'm a firm believer, I'm a firm believer in running backs touching the ball more often, gets them into a rhythm. I don't know how. I played cornerback in high school, and I can tell you this: it does matter. It does matter. Like, I think being on the field, it does get you into a rhythm, right? And it also gets you just into the flow of the game. Maybe gets you a little bit more cued in on like the reads and anticipation. So I do think there is some truth to getting into a rhythm and not having to be part of a rotation. With that said, this is not a surprise because the Bills have done this in the past with the likes of Josh Norman and Levi Wallace and other rotations. So they're not afraid to go to this sort of rotation. Now, in the past, it was like opposite of Trey White. Now it's opposite of Dane Jackson. Really, I mean, that side of it is unchanged, regardless of whether it was Trey White or Dane Jackson. So it is not a surprise to me. However, I'm wondering if it's because in reality, Christian Benford has played so well in training camp and in practice that they feel like he's earned a shot at real reps in game action. Also gives them a chance to then get him some experience early in the season, and in a situation down the road where they need him to come in that he's not super green. So I understand the rationale, but I also think that there is some credence to being able to get into a rhythm for one guy. So that's just the way the Bills want to do it. We'll see how much they actually do it.
Yeah, a couple of interesting comments here. Pamaruta says, trade for Levi. First Steelers depth chart came out today, thanks to our guy Ryan Talbot from NY Up from noticing Levi Wallace is a backup behind Cameron Sutton. So Levi Wallace did not crack the starting lineup there in Pittsburgh. Pops Mafia, I think, with a great comment here. He says, can't be 100% of the time, but man coverage versus zone coverage needs to be considered when rotating the DBs. So I would guess that maybe Christian Benford is probably a little bit ahead of game in the zone stuff. He was that ball hawk sort of at Villanova, even though both of these guys were used heavily with man coverage in the preseason. So it'll be interesting to see which one maybe the Buffalo Bills think is stronger in the zone coverage game. Maybe that guy gets some more reps. But again, as he pointed out, it can't be 100% of the time because you don't want to give away what you're doing on defense, but that could play into the rotation as well.